It's on the way. The operation is run, I believe. Well, that's a nice view. That's a new beach. You just see the yellow line. Now, that beach has been built in the last 2 or 3 weeks. There is Senna. There is Berger. Engines just fired up. John just craning out of the commentary box to see if anyone is brave enough to go on slicks. We suspect that people will be making pit stops to change onto the dry tyres as the water is soaked off the circuit, literally sponged off the circuit. These big tyres do clear it very well, John, and definitely no rain at the moment.
Well, the rain has stopped, but this part of the circuit, and the majority of the circuit, in fact, is still very wet. Some of the tyre companies, Pirelli, they have got regular slick tyres with grooves in them in case the conditions demand a half and half sort of tyre. Goodyear, the other tyre company, it is not their policy to groove their slick racing tyres, so they will only have the choice of pure wet tyres or pure dry tyres. So it's going to be a very interesting, and it could be a very tactical race also. It's these conditions are really putting it in the hands of a lottery.
Yes, these cars just rushing round on their final warm-up lap. Let's just reiterate the grid again for you. Senna and Berger on row 1, Prost and Nannini row 2, row 3 is Piquet and Boutsen, row 4 Mansell and Alesi, row 5 Patrese and Modena. On row 6 it's Warwick and Donnelly, the two Lotuses together, row 7 Nakajima and Alboreto, row 8 Griard and Martini, row 9 Alio and Suzuki, row 10 Pirro and Laurini, row 11 Wojtek and Leto, row 12 Bernard and Capelli, and on the back row De Cesaris and Cafe.
And we just look how bad the spray is. Now, these cars are not running at racing speeds yet, they're just on a parade lap. That's going to be a lot worse on the opening laps, and visibility for the people who are behind basically the front row of the grid is going to be atrocious. So it's a time for prudence, particularly for the midfield runners. They're the people that are always in that danger zone. So I think the people sort of Derek, Warwick, Nakajima, Griard, Modena, Donnelly and Alboreto, that middle of the grid is going to be a very tense early couple of laps, I would say.
Well, that graphic showing us that there's a total outbreak of TV cameras here. The Canadians putting up 16 or 17 cameras. Certainly been giving us some good pictures in qualifying. And as you see, a very big and enthusiastic crowd of Canadian fans here. Of course, we must never forget that great Canadian Gilles Villeneuve. The circuit now named after him. The driver you raced against, John, an exciting driver. And the only Canadian ever to score any points in the World Championship. Had about 12 Canadians in the World Championship over the years, but Gilles, the only man that's really been a top driver. John Lacey certainly weaving around there to get some temperature up. Now we go in-car with Stefano Modena. 3 in-car cameras this weekend. 2 Williams and Stefano Modena. Just to remind you that David Brabham failed to make it, sadly. Had all kinds of gearbox problems on the first day, and then the track just didn't dry up quickly enough on day 2 to let him have a big go at getting in the race. I suspect he might have done had that opportunity been available. Seconds away now from the start. That all McLaren front row of the grid, a familiar scene. Alain Prost, in 3rd position, has not won this race. One of the few Grand Prix that Alain Prost has failed to win. Two superb Honda engines at the back of those McLarens, revved to 13,000. How many revs will they be hanging on for the start?
Not too many, because in these wet conditions you won't need anything like that. I would have thought somewhere around 8,000-9,000 RPM will be enough to get the wheels spinning, and then really balancing the wheels.
Niet allemaal stil.
Trying not to get excessive wheel spin, and here's the red light on now. Oh, and Berger
was creepy.
Away.
Well, we don't know if he's going to get a penalty for that. Senna it is into the lead though. Berger second. Alesi charging hard as ever in the early stages. Nannini, I think it was, in 4th spot. Got a traffic jam at the back there. Berger twitches. Very difficult, tricky conditions here in Montreal.
And we got Pierluigi Martini's been punted off in that first section of circuit. But Senna leading now, Berger second, Nannini third, and Alesi, who really stormed his way through. He's rather like a bully at the start of a race. He just elbows his way up front, and he's got into 4th place.
You just saw Boutsen there trying to make up a spot and very nearly making contact. Plumes of spray behind these cars. Under the bridge and sharp right. None of the corners have names here at Montreal.
You just see how atrocious it is coming into that corner. It's almost impossible to see one car behind the other. But as long as the rain stays away, it's going to clear up, I think, probably quite quickly. And with only cars running, a dry line is going to appear, I hope, within about 5 laps. And then we're going to see the dive into the pits. Who's going to be first and who's going to take the risk and run on slick tyres.
As you said, John, it's all about strategy, this race. Senna, a master tactician. There's a lazy under the bridge. The Brazilian flag waved to encourage Senna as if he needed any. Fastest part of the circuit alongside the Olympic rowing basin. And that flick right and left. Marshall's, oh now what's that Marshall doing?
Well, we've still got Martini's Minardi stopped in a very precarious part of the track, and one of the problems here is there are no cranes to hoist that car out of the way. So what the pit crews do, the team, the workers here, they've got to take out a truck out of a tow hook, attach it to the car and pull it out of the way. But of course in these conditions it's not comfortable for the drivers to have one of those trucks on the track, so they're prepared, I would say, to leave the car there, give them plenty of warning that it is there, and then when the conditions clear up they'll get the crew workers in and get that car out of the way.
The mastery of Ayrton Senna. At the end of the first lap, he was 1.8 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger, Nannini third, Alesi, Piquet, Prost, Boutsen, Mansell. Then Patrese, Warwick in 10th place, Modena 11th, Donnelly 12th. Then it's Griard, Pirro, Alboreto, Nakajima, Alio, Foytek and Suzuki. That is the top 19 positions. Switching around. There's last year's winner, Jerry Boutsen. Barron's first and second. Nannini hanging in there third, then Alesi.
These first 4 cars really are being able to stretch a lead on the rest of the field. They've got a clear road ahead of them. There's sufficient gap between the cars that the spray isn't interfering with them, so they're taking full advantage of that opportunity. Berger running about 1.5 seconds behind teammate Senna. Still that yellow flag. The car, they managed to pull the front of the car now off the racetrack, but
still you see from that overhead shot frantic flag waving.
I was saying in the distance there's an oil flag being waved. There's somebody must have dropped oil or something on the track that has caused that flag marshal to put out a yellow and red flag. So maybe we're going to see some people coming into the pits at this stage already.
There's Nigel Mansell, not having the happiest of seasons. Has the speed but not the reliability in the Ferrari. This is lap number 3. That is Ayrton Senna. There's Berger. Then it's Nannini. Then Alesi. Down the hairpin. Second gear or first in these conditions, John?
Well, I would say they would use second gear because you want to minimise the amount of wheel spin. Again, a slow speed corner, you want to try and get out of the corner as progressively and gently as possible. Using first gear, there'll be too many revs, too much horsepower, make the back wheels lose adhesion, the car starts to slide. So second gear would be my choice, and everything that you do in the wet in these conditions has got to be done very, very delicately indeed to maintain the momentum and to minimise sliding around. So it's, here we have Modena now coming through this very fast section of circuit. And there's Brabham.
That car still running with the longitudinal gearbox. Apparently still some financing problems. To make sure that they get the gearbox done, they need to do a little bit more work. So they're still looking for a sponsor at Brabham to help with that situation. interesting story in paper here in Montreal a couple of days ago that Bodden is totally denying the fact that he's superstitious, and this situation with wearing a glove inside out that we talked about a year ago, apparently it's just because the glove was uncomfortable the right way in. So he says he isn't superstitious, but there is Ayrton Senna.
I have to say, I find it hard to believe that he wore his glove like that for the entire season. I can't believe he couldn't afford to buy another pair of gloves that were more comfortable. And I think some other people that have worked with him would confirm his superstitions are a little bit more than he's admitting to. But if it makes him comfortable, if that's what it takes to have Bodden go quicker, well then let him have his superstitions.
Right, just looking at the end of lap 3 on the Longines monitor. Senna, Berger, Nannini, Alesi, Piquet and Prost. That is the top 6. Boutsen is 7th, last year's winner. Then it's Mansell 8th, Tracy 9th and Warwick in 10th spot. Sure, Alesi, we're used to the sparks coming off that front wing now, but John, you telling me that may not be allowed next year?
The regulations are going to change, and with the Tyrrell in particular, these the front of the aerodynamic wings in the car, what causes it to spark are the end plates of the wing are touching the ground nearly all the time, and that is a big aerodynamic advantage. Next year, those wing end plates are not allowed to be, they must be 25 centimeters above the bottom of the chassis. In other words, they're going to be well clear of the ground, and that's going to create quite a different aerodynamic problem for the designers of teams to have to cope with.
The man to watch now, Boutsen has passed. Alain Prost is up to 6th place. There is Nelson Piquet, currently running in 5th spot. Will Piquet soon come under pressure from Boutsen? Currently the gap is 3.6 seconds. On the brakes down to the hairpin. Course car there, presumably that went out to see what was happening, and that is a dodgy old situation you don't see very often at Grand Prix races.
No, it's not, and I hope the drivers were fully briefed in the driver briefing this morning that if a course car goes out, what it is there to do, and what the driver is expected to do also, because normally when a course car goes out, it means all the drivers have to fall in line behind it and do a number of laps behind the pace car until it is brought in, and then the racing can resume. That, I have no idea what it's for at all.
Showing the gap as 1.6 seconds between Senna and Berger, and it looks closer than that to me on that screen.
Yes, the gap I would say is a little bit less than we're seeing on the screen. In fact, Nannini also is managing, I think, to close a little bit closer to Berger. I think with the track beginning to show signs of a dry line, it's enabling the drivers to attack a little bit more. They were being quite naturally cautious in the early laps, but now the beginnings of that dry line are appearing. Gives them the chance to use the power they have and the grip that these wet weather tyres are providing, and start to get a little bit closer to one another.
Senna, Berger, Nannini, Alesi, Piquet and Boutsen. This race is scheduled for 70 laps, 307 kilometres, 190 miles. Whether it will go that full distance remains to be seen. All depends on the weather. 2 hours, of course, the cutout off point. There's Nannini, seems to be doing something with his hand to the mirror. Well, that gives a very good impression of how close the 3 are. Senna in the lead, Berger second, Nannini in 3rd spot. Boutsen slows up a little bit more on Piquet.
And these 3 are really pulling away from Jean Alesi in 4th spot. We can see that Alesi cannot maintain the pace of the 2 McLarens and the Benetton. But that's not despite a mega effort on the part of Alesi. His enthusiasm and commitment is absolutely wonderful to watch. But here's the main bunch of the field now. And it's a shame we can't see more of this, because this is going to be the entertaining part of the motor race. No one wants to go off the dry line. Of course, it's you lose an awful lot of grip very, very quickly indeed. So you're seeing 10 or 12 cars. Alberto having a little sniff down the inside of Grillard, and he's got it. He's got through.
Nakajima in the middle of that pack as well.
And Griard's lost a lot of ground. Look at that. Now there's a real traffic jam. He's lost 3-4 spots in that one manoeuvre.
Well, that's the battle from 14th place downwards, and that is real entertainment out there.
Well, Nakajima managed to get himself boxed, and all he had to do was go onto the grass, but he got back onto the racetrack. He was looking for a way to get past Griard, and Griard very, shut the door without any mercy whatsoever. And in fact, it's allowed Alio to take the momentum and get through the inside of Nakajima.
There's Alboreto shown in 14th spot ahead of Griard, Nakajima, Alio, Arini and Wojtek, but that's probably changing all the time. A tremendous tussle. There's Oliver Griard, the man from Toulouse.
I think Griard really is holding this pack up very badly, because Alboreto half a lap ago was behind. Now he's pulled out 2 seconds, and see Alio now passing Griard also, so there's a lot of action taking place.
But Senna is still leading, but Nannini is now second, Alesi is third, and Gerhard Berger has dropped to 4th spot. What has happened to Gerhard Berger? It appears that Gerhard Berger has stopped somewhere out on the racetrack while we watch this tremendous tussle for the lower spots. One of the leading contenders, it appears, is out of the race, unseen by our television cameras. It's still Senna leading by 4.6 seconds from Nannini and Alesi.
And this is wonderful stuff. It's just a shame he can't. Well, Berger's still there. I don't know. I think our Olivetti timing equipment has missed Berger, because he's within a second of Ayrton Senna in the lead. So,
well, that is a very rare happening indeed, that computer makes a mistake. So apologies. It is still Senna, followed by Berger. John, I think I've got the answer to this. I think that Berger's been penalised a minute for jumping the start. That they would put into the computer.
It could well be. It could be that he was given a minute's penalty, and that's why our readout here isn't reflecting that penalty. All we know is that he's been dropped right down to the tail of the field. In fact, Berger's being classified as running in 24th.
You see that?
1 minute, yes, you're right. Well done.
That's what's happened. So Gerhard Berger penalised a minute for jumping the start. We await, of course, for official confirmation of that. Well, he did creep.
He did. I think he did more than creep. He was on the move well before red went to green, and the penalty for that is a 1 minute. So that's going to be very hard to find a way to claw back those 60 seconds.
Senna, the fastest lap so far, 1:36.8. So the track running 15-16 seconds slower than it has in qualifying on Friday. There, Berger, second on the road, but actually down at about 21st place. There is Sandro Nannini, third on the road, second overall. So Senna the leader, Nannini is second, Alesi third, Piquet fourth, Boutsen fifth, Cross sixth, and to remind you that Gerhard Berger has been docked 1 minute for jumping the start. So Gerhard will be pretty angry about that.
Yes, that's, well, I'm afraid to say if you jump the start you have to pay the penalty, and whether he had a mechanical problem, sometimes if you were holding the car in gear with the clutch in for a long time, the clutch gets very hot, and the car creeps forward, and there's not much you can do about it. I'm quite certain that's what Gerhard would say would happen. Taking a chance like that, otherwise at the front of a grid, would really deserve a minute's penalty, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say his clutch was dragging a little bit in the car. He couldn't stop it rolling forward.
Dry line starting to develop. A wonderful shot there of a man at work, Ayrton Senna. This Senna's 99th Grand Prix. There's Riccardo Patrese. Crazy currently in 8th spot. Lutzen in 5th position. Just a shot of Derek Warwick there. So Senna leads this motor race. Controversy here at the Ile Notre Dame. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Going well, and quite frankly, the Lamborghini engine, I would think, must be the envy of most of the drivers in these conditions. The V12 engine has a nice big power band, comes in nice and smoothly and sensibly with a steady build-up of power. No big bang as it comes in to unstick the car. Having said that, of course, and there's one of the Williams in for 6, and that's Boutsen, who is
It's Eric Bernard in the Lola Lamborghini, the Frenchman. He was well down the field. He didn't qualify particularly well, and he's obviously effectively out of the race.
Yes, he was in for other work. He was putting on more wet. But for Tracy, of course, the Renault engine, having said high praise for the Lamborghini engine, the Renault engine is particularly smooth.
News that Gerhard Berger has a 60-second penalty. Now, for jumping the start, do you remember when they got away, I said it looked to me as though Gerhard Berger was jumping the start. He has, and into the pits for tyres comes Patrese.
Yes, well, finally the flurry of tyre changes has started, albeit rather late, I would have said. I think anybody who'd changed a couple of laps ago.
You rejoin us with Riccardo Patrese making the first move onto slick tyres. The circuit is drying out here. Ayrton Senna still leads. There he is. Official confirmation has come to us now that we were indeed correct. Gerhard Berger has been penalised a minute for jumping the start. He currently lies second on the road, but is down in about 20th position. Oh, John, what's happening there?
Well, I think that was part of Suzuki's. Yes, Aguri Suzuki, he managed to clip the back of another car, and he's been in the pits, had that nose replaced, and he'll probably also be going out now on slick tyres. We've had Riccardo Patrese in his Williams Renault, and he's changed over to slick tyres as well. So people are now beginning to make that change. Patrese is really the first of the serious runners to do so, and it'll be interesting to watch, and I'll monitor how quickly his lap times can match those of the people on wet weather tyres, and then he will begin to overtake them as the track gets drier.
Big battle here between Lacy and Piquet, and Piquet goes through. Piquet through for 3rd spot. Nelson Piquet.
Well, Piquet just put in a lap that's almost 4 seconds a lap quicker than a Lacy, so.
Well, they're on different make of tyres. See quite clearly there that those Pirellis are completely different to the Goodyears. Asymmetric is the word, I think, John.
Yes, it is. They've got 2 different tread patterns on the one tyre. One is to cut through very, very deep water, and the other is to cope with conditions such as these. So they've got a wet weather tyre, which in effect is a dual purpose tyre.
Just recap the positions: Senna, Nannini, Alesi, Piquet, Boutsen, Prost, Mansell, Warwick, Donnelly, Modena. That's the top 10. Then it's Pirro, Alboreto, and what's this? We've got an Arrows off, yes. And we've got a Dallara off.
We've got a Alboreto off for sure. We don't know which Dallara it is. We have a suspicion that maybe De Cesaris.
Unfair. It's
a fairly reasonable guess, I think, but we have to wait and see. We maybe do him an
Senna
injustice.
Into the pits. Senna is going to go onto the slicks, and as he does so, Nannini will take the lead, only briefly. Good pit stop, gets it sideways, almost wipes out a couple of mechanics.
That was a very, very good pit stop indeed.
So Sandro Nannini leads the Canadian Grand Prix here at Montreal. He is still on wet tyres. His teammate Nelson Piquet has come in, and they seem to be having a problem.
Yes, they're working around the right front suspension on Piquet's car, whether they're making a mechanical adjustment to the suspension at the same time, but obviously losing a lot of time in the process, and that's going to drop Piquet back down from his 4th position.
And Derek Warwick comes in. So everyone now deciding to go on to slicks. Warwick gets his visor wiped. A sea of yellow there with the Camel team. Nannini in the lead, Lacey second, Boutsen third, Prost fourth, Senna in fifth spot. Then it's Mansell, Donnelly, Piquet, Warwick and Berger. And we're going to see the positions changing around over the next 10 or 15 laps, virtually every lap.
Well, I would imagine we're going to see, and watching Piquet pass Alesi again. But I imagine we're going to see Nannini come into the pits this lap and to put on his dry weather slick tyres, because obviously the conditions now benefit those people who are going to run on slick tyres, and those on wets are in a losing position.
Well, there is Sandro Nannini. I wonder how long he's going to stay out there. When you're in the lead, it's very difficult to bring yourself to come in, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but I would have thought that tactically the team should have been advising him to come in. He's had his glory in leading the lap, and Alesi now also coming in. It's like a stream of them, Boutsen, and it is, I think, maybe Manuel Pirro that was involved with Alboreto, but that looks like De Cesaris following in Boutsen. Oh, it's Alan Prost in the Ferrari.
Senna back up to second place already. Senna 19 seconds behind Nannini. So this is a good one from Prost. Up through the 7 gears in that semi-automatic box. So currently Nannini, Senna, Mansell, Alesi, Berger. Prost moves up to 5th spot now.
That was a very good pit stop for Prost. He was in and out quickly and he didn't waste time as he left his own pit box. And we're just seeing somebody trying to slide down the inside into the hairpin bend from the helicopter shot. We missed what happened.
Gerhard Berger, the fastest man actually on the racetrack at the moment, just put in a 1 minute 31.695.
I suspect Nannini has to come in this lap. Let's watch and see whether he's going to pay any heed to our advice. Berger and Senna, of course Berger's had that 1 minute penalty, but he ought to be getting out of the way of Ayrton Senna, let him get through and get on with the lead of the race.
Just trying to see if Gerhard's actually changed tyres, John. Looks as if he has.
It would appear so. I think if he was running at that speed, it's an indication that he would have been into the pits and put on those slick Goodyear tyres.
Nannini lapping in the 135s. Senna lapping in 133, and Berger now putting the fastest lap of the race to date, 1 minute 29.910. He's got that minute penalty to make up.
Well, he's also got an entire lap to make up to his teammate. So Ayrton Senna leading the race.
A fascinating struggle here on the Ile Notre Dame, the circuit. Gilles Villeneuve, Gerhard Berger, a man with a minute penalty. There's some of the wet weather tyres have just come off, gently steaming to themselves. And here's a replay. Sure exactly what that was about, but here is the current leader, Sandro Nannini. The family riding on a high at the moment. His sister has got a record high in the Italian charts, the Italian World Cup song she's recorded.
So Nannini did go into the pits in that replay. We're just getting the benefit of a couple of minutes ago. Nannini, who was leading the race, going into the pits to change onto his slicks, and that of course places Senna back at the head of the field. With Alan Prost now running in second place behind him. Jean Alesi third, Boutsen fourth. And that's a slow stop. It's a poor stop for Nannini. Lost 5 seconds over Alan Prost and Ayrton Senna in that pit stop, and those 5 seconds are very valuable ones to lose meaninglessly in the pits.
Yes, and see across the right beam, Nannini was actually 13 seconds behind Senna. So now the race picking up its pattern again. Senna leading by 13 seconds from Nannini. Prost third, Alesi still in fourth spot. Then it's Boutsen, Piquet and Mansell. John, can there be any appeal against that decision of the stewards to penalise Gerhard a minute?
once the stewards have made a decision, there is no right of appeal whatsoever. This is a regulation that was introduced for 1990. The stewards of a race meeting, once they make a decision, no team, driver, individual, whoever has got any right to appeal. Well, that decision is there and it stands for that meeting, and if you are penalised a minute or fined a fortune in dollars, it's pay up and stay quiet.
Well, we're with Stefano Modena in the Brabham, team managed by Herbie Blash, and we're chasing the McLaren. The horsepower of that McLaren, John. This Brabham on the latest Judd engine, produced in Britain. Superb effort by Engine Developments. A relatively small budget compared to many of the other teams.
Yes, and Modena has now become a McLaren sandwich. He's got Berger in front and Senna behind him.
And another change at the top. Senna now leads Alan Prost. Prost up to second place, 22 seconds behind. Boots in third, PK 4, then it's Mansell and Warwick up to sixth place. Presumably Derek, well, we have seen Derek make a pit stop. So they must have made a quick pit stop there, and Derek Warwick having a good run. No points so far this season for Derek. Senna, Prost, Bootson, PK, Mansell, Warwick, Patrese, Berger, Larini shown in 9th place now, and Donnelly in 10th spot. Now in replay, just see Modena being passed by. Senna was getting very out of shape in that manoeuvre.
Well, he had to go over the wet part of the track to get ahead of Modena, and on slick tyres that's not very comfortable to do. Had the car well out of shape, but gathered it up, and now is continuing on his way in the lead fairly comfortably.
Make the point, John, that if Berger had not been penalised a minute, he would now be leading this race by 3 seconds.
I have to say I disagree. I think the pits are informing Senna very clearly indeed that he does not have to race with Berger. If he did have to race with Berger, I can assure you the situation would not be quite as we are watching on the screen right now.
Okay, fair comment.
My goodness, these guys have got people lapping the back markers, Prost in the middle of the back markers.
Of course, the back markers get out in the damp and then they lose all adhesion.
Yes, and of course when they get out in the damp, they're not really in control. So it's a very hazardous moment for Prost here in the Ferrari, and Boutsen following him less than a second behind in his Williams.
Mansell putting in some quick laps. Times have dropped now to the mid 127s. Derek Warwick has just turned a 127.481, confirmation after 17 laps. Senna leads from Prost and Boutsen. So the positions still swapping around. Charging down to that hairpin. Ligier moves over. And we have lost Sandro Nannini. Nannini, who led the race briefly, was then lying second, has dropped off the leaderboard. From our commentary box we can't see where he's gone, and on the screen we can't see. So,
but on the screen we're really watching an interesting tussle here between Alain Prost and the Ferrari, and Thierry Boutsen, who's doing everything he can to make space for himself to slide through and take that second place.
Last year's winner, challenging for second place now.
And really I have to say Boutsen looks like he's capable of running a lot quicker than he is. Alain Prost in second place is being able to hold back Boutsen. The chance to pass really means going off the dry line onto the wet line, and that could be the end of Boutsen's race if he made that move. So let's watch and see if Boutsen's brave enough to do what Senna did a couple of laps earlier, coming down this section of track under the bridge and into one of those second, third gear right and left S's. He wasn't close enough to have a look, but he's certainly giving Prost something to think about. His mirrors are going to be very full of the blue, yellow and white Williams.
Senna leads by a massive 30 seconds over this battle for second place. Prost fending off the attentions of Thierry Boutsen. Just a hand off the wheel there. I think he's getting a little frustrated.
Well, of course, every second he has to stay behind Prost, he's losing more time to Ayrton Senna, and I think he feels that if he was able to get through, he could maybe make some inroads into Senna's lead, but getting stuck behind Alain Prost as he is, Senna's going to be allowed to slide away without very much problems.
Again, Ligier in the way. Senna, Prost, Boutsen, Piquet, Mansell, Warwick.
And this is a chance, this is a difficult moment for Prost. He's caught behind Alliot, and Boutsen's looking to take advantage. Oh, he's lost it.
Oh, he lost
my
it.
Goodness. Well, Alain Prost did something which is displays his experience, and that was he anticipated Boutsen coming down the left-hand side, being on the wet, losing control as he did. He backed off the throttle, got on the brakes, and of course Boutsen then slid into Alliot's Ligier, and Alain Prost now continues in second place, unhurt and unhindered. In fact, it was Larini's Ligier we saw, not Alliot's car. But watch again, Boutsen saw the opportunity, took it, locked a brake, skidded past Prost, hit Larini's car. Boutsen, I think, was trying to get back to the pits, but in the meantime, Prost used all his experience, read that situation very, very well indeed. Now that's maturity, that's what a good Grand Prix driver is all about.
Yes, well, no point at all, really, and Thierry getting back to the pits as John Lacey goes for a spin on the grass.
Yes, he's got his slick tyres well and truly on the wet. That's at the same spot. In fact, we just watched the incident with Boutsen and Larini, so anybody who gets one wheel offline is going to be into the gravel trap or on the grass. And just look at the gravel flying out of the radiator ducts on that Tyrrell Ford. All that's going in front of race leader Ayrton Senna, and I'm sure he's not too happy to get a face full of gravel. That can do a lot of damage to his car. Potentially radiators can be punctured by those.
This frantic battle, but it's Senna well in the lead, 34 seconds ahead of Prost. Piquet's now third, Mansell up to fourth place, Derek Warwick is fifth, then it's Gerhard Berger actually shown in sixth spot, and indeed I think just wondering if Gerhard has worked his way up. Prost chucking the Ferrari into the hairpin.
Now we see Piquet very close indeed.
Well, confirmation that Berger is indeed sixth. So what a storming drive for him despite that problem. Modern in 10th, Caffey in 11th. Two Italians running together. But I have to say that really was a mistake by Thierry Boutsen.
Yes, he took a bit of an opportunistic dive down the inside. Of course, getting off the dry line onto the wet line on slick race tyres was a big, big gamble, and it did not pay off. It was a fundamental mistake. He was a little bit over-eager in fact, in his attempt to get past Prost, but Prost was being delayed momentarily by Larini, and it was a legitimate thing to try to do, but it didn't pay off. But took out Larini, and it's more or less written off any chance of Boutsen finishing the race, let alone being in the points. And of course, Prost now is motoring on fairly serenely, but he's got Piquet pushing him, and behind Piquet we've got Nigel Mansell.
So we have Senna leading the Grand Prix here in Canada. A fascinating motor race. Senna motoring off into the distance, but so much can happen here. We'll be back in just a few moments after this short break.
Fight that 1 minute penalty.
Yes, well, I think that's about as far up as you'll get. I'm not, I mean, a minute penalty is a hell of a thing to overcome, that's for sure. But I feel very sorry for Alliot, because here he is minding his own business and gets taken out of the Grand Prix after about 20 laps or something by a guy that overcooks it. All right, let's go back.
Second gear for Island hairpin. Nelson Piquet, and you can see Nigel Mansell coming up into the picture. There he is. Ferrari second, Benetton third, Ferrari fourth of Nigel Mansell in fifth position. it is still Derek Warwick, as he was last year, doing well in the Canadian Grand Prix. 6th Berger, 7th Patrese, in 8th position it is Martin Donnelly. So both the Lotuses are doing well. Mansell. Mansell desperately needs points in this race. He's only finished once this year to get just 3 points, 4th in Brazil. And it certainly hasn't been for lack of trying. It certainly hasn't been because he's lost any of his ability, as you can see for yourselves, because Nelson Piquet in 3rd position is making no ground up at all on Alain Prost, whereas Mansell is certainly making gain on Nelson Piquet. So, over the line.
You're back live on Eurosport at an enthralling Canadian Grand Prix where Ayrton Senna leads. Prost is 2nd, Piquet 3rd, Mansell 4th. That's a good battle. Then Warwick and Berger, despite a minute penalty. We have seen Thierry Boutsen crash out of the action as he tries to attack 2nd place. We have seen Martini fall out of the action after only 1 lap. Pirro and Alboreto, they collided, they're out of the race. Nannini also out of the race, and Boutsen and Larini, as we mentioned, they're out of the Canadian Grand Prix. So plenty of action here, still this dry line, and there we have off a Benetton.
That is Nannini's car. We don't know what's happened, but obviously a major off at some point. He's trying to pass, you can see him coming down the inside, passing Jean Alesi, I would say, losing control. This is where Senna nearly went out of control as well. No grip whatsoever. Look at that, he's accelerating as the car hits the grass. It actually begins to accelerate. No grip and a mighty thump backwards into the tire wall. And that's at the point of the circuit where we saw Senna a few laps earlier also nearly having the same difficulties.
That is the big problem with the Canadian Grand Prix here. There is this dry line. If you get off the line, you can go for that wild ride, John. Well, got to be so careful.
That is, you know, that's as wild as I would like to ever have. And now Tyrrell's being held, holding up the leader, Ayrton Senna. Again, for Senna, he's got to be so careful where he chooses to make his overtaking moves. Alesi, in fact, it is, there's a yellow flag now, so no one is allowed to pass. That stationary yellow flag means you are not allowed to pass, and you have to wait until a green flag is displayed after the incident before you can recommence your overtaking maneuvers. Alesi sliding past Martin Donnelly. Donnelly shut the door. Alesi looking to go down the inside.
Well, those two raced together in the same team in Formula 3000. They know each other well, both ex-Eddie Jordan team members.
But look at this, Senna's trying to get through between the two of them.
Recap the positions: Senna, Prost, Piquet in 3rd spot, Mansell, Berger, Warwick and Patrese.
These conditions are really very tricky indeed, because the race line is not really wide enough to allow 2 cars to pass side by side, so you have to choose particularly carefully where you're going to do that. And it's taken Senna almost the best part of a lap to get past 2 cars, and he's got a further 2 cars ahead of him. Suzuki and De Cesaris, the too many will want to get clear of as quickly as possible. Gerhard Berger, whose car is just ahead, of course, is almost a lap down on the leader, Ayrton Senna, so he's no problem for Senna. But the Lolo Lamborghini and the Dallara Ford ahead of him are worrying.
Oliver Griard looks as if he's in trouble there. Gerhard Berger going through the picture. There's Senna, Alesi. Senna over 30 seconds ahead of the opposition. A masterly display from the man from Sao Paulo. And look at that, John.
That is hairy. That is hairy. Griard and Eric Bernard. Griard did shut the door pretty tight on Eric Bernard. Senna's gone through. Alesi sliding through the inside.
Whoa, Alesi's move.
That was hairy, I have to say. That was extremely hairy. This is a bit of motor. We haven't seen motor racing like this for a long time. I mean, it's real murder for those guys out trying to get through the slower cars. But look at Alesi taking advantage of Senna. He's following him through, like being following a police car, you know, taking advantage of a police car going down the inside on a motorway.
Well, fire engine anyway. So.
Fire engine.
Alesi, familiar crash helmet colours, the colours of the late Elio De Angelis. Jean Alesi was a great fan of De Angelis, and when Elio was killed in that testing accident at Paul Ricard, he painted on his stripes as a tribute. Nice touch.
Yes, it is. Now we've got to see Senna. Can he get safely past De Cesaris? Berger's made it past JJ Leto and the Onyx.
Gerhard Berger currently in 5th spot. 23 cars still running, 22 cars now. After 26 laps, the order. Let's go through the field again. Senna, Prost, Piquet, Mansell, Berger, Warwick, Patrese, Alesi down in 8th place, but driving superbly. Donnelly, Modena, Caffey, Alio, Capelli, Wojtek, Bernard, Nakajima, Leto and De Cesaris. That's the top 18. Berger 55 seconds behind his teammate Ayrton Senna. When you add on a 1 minute penalty, 5 seconds ahead of him actually on the road.
Here's the battle for second place with Alain Prost and Nelson Piquet. Piquet's progress has sort of come to a halt. He rushed up to the back of Prost, and Nigel Mansell's dropped back. Oh, again, look at that. Alesi's car has gone into... My goodness, that car's a pretty awful accident, but John Alesi's quite all right. He did the very same thing, it would appear, that Nannini did a number of laps earlier. He came down, probably tried to pass somebody on the wet part of the track, has gone out of control and smashed into Nannini's Benetton, broken the Benetton in two. Alesi's Tyrrell is also damaged, but Alesi was able to climb out of the car totally unhurt. But let's watch it here, yes. Trying to pass to Cesaris, exactly a mirror of Nannini. See how the car swings one way, then the other, and the car, as soon as it hits the wet track, accelerates and slams into Nannini's already severely damaged Benetton. My goodness, that was a big shunt.
A very big shunt indeed for Jean Alesi, but he steps out uninjured as Ayrton Senna continues. After 27 laps, it's Senna, Prost, Piquet, Mansell, Berger and Patrese. .29 seconds now between Senna and Prost. Piquet still worrying at the rear of Prost, you see it there. Piquet, second most experienced driver in Grand Prix racing. He knows that the track will dry out, and maybe in 15-20 laps time he can have a go at passing without endangering himself.
Well, we've seen just how treacherous the surface changes are, and Piquet, while not having seen the incidents, he will certainly see the results of them. And being as experienced as both these drivers are, they're not about to take unnecessary chances, and as long as Piquet can keep in touch with Prost as the race goes on, the track may well become a little drier, but of course the part of the track that's wet is not the part of the track that anybody's going to be on anyway, so that progress is going to have to take a little bit longer than maybe Piquet would like it to do, but patience is the name of the game at this stage in the race for him. When they come into traffic, that's the best opportunity he's going to have to try and get past Prost. The use of traffic will become a major part of the second half of this race, assuming that there's any traffic left to pass. If we see any more incidents like we've watched Nannini and Alesi, there may not be too many cars running at the end of the race, Andrew.
Piquet, of course, also has to worry about Nigel Mansell. Mansell only a couple of seconds behind Piquet. There you see him in the picture now.
He was closer a few laps ago. He's dropped back. He may have done that just to give himself a little bit more space and time. And when you're in a race like this, sometimes it's more advantageous to drop back, think about it, look where your rivals are weak, and basically work on where you're strong, try to combine those two elements and then take a shot. Now Mansell is closing again. We see he's closed up probably nearly a second in that one lap, so he's now having a second charge at Nelson Piquet, and of course bringing himself closer to his teammate Alain Prost. But they've got to get past this man Stefano Modena, who will want to stay in the dry line. Prost sliding down the inside. The track there appears to be dry enough to do so, but Prost has got through. Piquet will be hindered because this part of the track they're coming onto is not quite as dry, and of course it's a one line through this very, very fast sweeping right, left, right. No way to pass at that part of the track. Prost has stolen a little bit of advantage. He's opened up over a second in those few corners on Nelson Piquet. Modena looking in his mirrors, waiting for the opportunity to allow Piquet to slide through, but yeah, Piquet's gone through, and Mansell now is the one that's got caught. But I would hope that Modena will stay well to the right coming out of this corner, let Mansell go up on the inside. Well, no, he didn't. He ought to let him go through there. He should have gone. I mean, that was a mistake on Modena's part. He had the opportunity to let Mansell get through there. It wouldn't have affected his own position and would have allowed this race to continue as a race.
Yeah, blue flags were waving at him. Now Griard it is who is holding up Alain Prost.
Let's see whether Prost can get past and back in again. He's pulling out to pass. Hopefully, yes, he's on the line. Griard moved over onto the wet part of the track, so Prost has managed to use the traffic to his best advantage at this point.
Well, tremendous battle going on here. Senna 29 seconds ahead of Alain Prost. Then we have this battle between Piquet and Mansell. Stay with us, we'll be back in just a few moments.
Mansell, having passed the Brabham jug, will sail away. He's doing so, but he's still got to make up distance on Nelson Piquet, who has taken the opportunity to pull away from Nigel Mansell, and sandwiched between them is Griard. There he is, the Frenchman in the Italian Marcella. We are on lap 32 now. Ayrton Senna leading very comfortably indeed, and taking his time about getting round the circuit by his standards. Prost in second position. In third position it is still Piquet. Fourth is still Mansell. In fifth position it is still Gerhard Berger, allowing for the 60 seconds penalty, that is.
2 secondi da Prost, Mansell a 2 secondi da Piquet, Berger a 19 secondi da Mansell. Questi sono i primi 5, aspettiamo sul traguardo il sesto, che dovrebbe essere Riccardo Caprese, che transita in questo momento a 15 secondi da Berger, tallonato a 1 secondo e 4 da Warwick. Poi c'è un buco di mezzo minuto con ottavo Donnelly che precede Modena, Cappiagliò, Capelli, poi Seghe. 32esimo giro concluso, non siamo ancora alla metà corsa e già c'è stata una serie di colpi di scena che addirittura è difficile ricordare. Senna continua a guidare la corsa, perché insidia sempre la seconda posizione di Prost, che adesso...
You're back live on EuroSport for our flag-to-flag coverage of the Canadian Grand Prix, a race being led by the great Ayrton Senna. 30 seconds ahead of Alain Prost, the reigning world champion, a man who has never won this race. Prost is being chased by Piquet and his own teammate Nigel Mansell. Gerhard Berger is in 5th spot, despite a 1-minute penalty. Had he not had that penalty, then in theory at least, he would have been leading this motor race. Behind Berger is Patrese, then it's the two Lotuses of Warwick and Donnelly in 7th and 8th spot. Here is Nigel Mansell, had a little problem in the last couple of laps with traffic. He's sorted that out now. He's passed Modena, he has passed Griard, and he is attacking as Nigel only knows how to, attacking Nelson Piquet. John Watson.
Well, these three cars, Prost, Piquet and Mansell, had an awful lot of traffic in the last 5 laps. They've all got through safely. It opened the gap up again, but I would anticipate in the next number of laps we're going to see gradually Piquet closing up to Alain Prost and Nigel Mansell closing up to those two guys. So the prospect of a race with these three cars for second place, to me, is going to be very exciting.
Yes, Berger still lapping very quickly out there. Berger just turned a 1 minute 24.299, comparing with his 1 minute 20.465 in qualifying. The gap remaining constant between Senna and Prost, just about 30 seconds, actually shown now as 29.5. Those vapour trails wisping off the back of the McLaren's wing. John, we've talked about it before, but always worth an explanation. Why are we getting these plain light vapour trails?
Well, the weather conditions here, it's a very heavy air, a lot of moisture in the air. And as the air passes over and through those rear wings, you get an effect of vapour trail. It's like looking up in the sky and you're seeing the vapour trail from a jet plane. This is the air, the moisture-laden air being accelerated very rapidly over and around the wing, and that's that little wisp of white you see in the tail on each side of each wing, like somebody having a little quick fag in the back of the wing.
All the cars doing it. Bernard just going through our picture. Well, just coming up to half distance. This race scheduled for 70 laps.
This is one of the hardest races during the calendar, not just for the car but for the drivers. It's always been a very physical race. But the cars themselves, braking in particular, is something that really is punished severely. And it's quite common to see cars finishing races not only with no pad material in the disc, but the disc itself being worn down almost to a wafer. So trying not to use the brakes excessively is an important part of the driver's strategy. Excessive use of the brakes can easily mean a trip to the pits to change pads, or having to back off the pace of the race to ensure that you get through to the finish. But Prost has managed to open up again a little bit more of a gap on Piquet. We saw there again with the slower traffic, one of the Onyxes, that Prost is being able to take advantage of the traffic better than Mansell is, and Piquet. Just getting those people on the right part of the track and the other two catching them in the wrong parts.
Yes, the gap between Prost and Piquet now 2.1 seconds, a similar gap between Piquet and Mansell, and then Gerhard Berger, including that penalty, another 20 seconds behind Mansell. A super drive from Gerhard, really, despite his indiscretion at the start, and he hasn't given up. He's just given it everything and been lapping quicker than almost anybody else throughout the race.
Yes, it is, and I think really he has to thank the weather for that. Because of the conditions, he's been able to take advantage of being at the front of the race and driving unhindered or unimpeded, and he's virtually made up a lap on everybody other than the top four people. So running in fifth place is a very impressive drive indeed from Gerhard Berger.
Well, the race only half through. Cesaris in the pits,
putting on another set of slicks. The choice of tyre that you fit when you went onto the slick tyre was also very critical, because after you go out on a wet racetrack, when it dries out, the track is what is described as being green. There's no rubber on it, and that can have a different effect on how a tyre performs. And if you choose the wrong tyre, you might find that the tyre performance can fade away very quickly. So the correct tyre choice in these conditions is possibly more critical than it would have been had it just been a straightforward dry race.
De Cesaris was lying in 17th spot when he made the pit stop. This is lap number 36, the race going into its second half. And projecting forward, it looks as if the race will run its full 70 laps, John. The first half completed in just about 52 minutes.
Yes, I think we've got no problem with seeing a full race today. The track really is in effect dry. It's just that the edges, the parts that people want to use to overtake, remain damp and extremely treacherous. So the lap times are about what one would have expected had it even been a regular dry race. Just the amount of prudence and caution that everybody has to exercise to keep any one of their four wheels off that. One wheel on that damp will take you a trip into the barriers, the tyre wall. We've seen Nannini go off in a very spectacular way. Then we saw Jean Lacey go off in an even more spectacular way at this particular point of the circuit.
Yes, Patrese coming under a lot of pressure from Derek Warwick as Ayrton Senna goes to lap the pair of them.
Again, this is a situation which Derek Warwick, I'm sure, is going to try to use to his advantage. Of course, Warwick, really, it's when the lead driver is behind you, it's up to you to give him the best chance to get past and not to impede his progress. But of course, when you're embroiled in a battle like this for position and for points, your focus is only one way, and that's ahead of you.
Yes, well, that is the battle for sixth spot. After winning at Imola, Tracy was pretty disappointed. The team came to the circuit with high hopes, I know, Williams. But we've seen Boutsen crash out as Senna goes past Derek Warwick.
And that's what Warwick did, was absolutely perfect. He recognised Senna behind him. He moved to the left, let Senna take the position. Now hopefully Patrese will do the same for Senna, and when that exercise is complete, hopefully the gap between Warwick and Patrese will be back to where it was before Senna got involved with the two of them.
Senna 31.8 seconds ahead of Alain Prost. Piquet still third, and Mansell and Berger. So Ayrton Senna, the total master of the Montreal circuit so far. We'll take this opportunity to leave you just briefly, but stay with us. More action coming up on Eurosport.
As Patrese comes round the left-hander behind Ivan Capelli. And in second place, of course, Alain Prost. A gap between Prost and Piquet of about 2 or 3 seconds. In fourth position, it is still Nigel Mansell who can't get past the Benetton. Fifth place, it's still pretty static, is Gerhard Berger. A really storming drive after that 60-second penalty of his. Then lapped, through to lap Riccardo Patrese. Sixth in the race goes Ayrton Senna, and seventh is Derek Warwick.
Yes, and Derek Warwick was looking, I think, to try and stay with Senna, so if Senna got past, he could try and follow him through, but he wasn't quite close enough. It was a tremendous idea, and I was rooting for him. I could see what he was angling up. He nearly got close enough, but it would have been overly heroic, because Derek has been stuck behind Patrese for quite some time now, and of course, with Patrase's pretty experienced, he won't be putting any wheels off the line and onto the wet. And so he's leaving it all for Warwick to do, to try, because he's got to step out of line, get onto the slippery stuff, and basically say his prayers, keep his fingers crossed and hope he can do it. But at the moment he's taking what's probably a much more sensible course, trying to force it.
Conclusione del 38esimo giro. E intanto Mansell si è portato.
You're back live on Eurosport as the battle for second place hots up. Alain Prost coming under increasing pressure from Nelson Piquet. There is Piquet. And Mansell with them too. And a good battle also for sixth spot a little further down. With Derek Warwick really pressing hard after Riccardo Patrese from the helicopter. Anything that Piquet can do to get past Prost is a wily old bird, John.
Yes, it is. It's a race of strategy. These are both very experienced, mature Grand Prix drivers. They're not going to do what we saw Nannini or Alesi do. In fact, that part of the circuit now has been forbidden to pass because there's a statutory yellow flag. It's been there for the last 5 laps, and I think it's been decided to keep that flag out for the duration of the race. But these guys, Mansell, Piquet and Prost, I would not imagine that they're prepared to take that same gamble. But of course they're going to look for any opportunity they can, and I think that opportunity is only really going to come when they come into the traffic, the slower cars, the cars that they've already lapped and are going to lap for a second time. So let's watch and hope that at some stage the traffic they're going to come up to enables this fight to become something really the highlight of the race.
Senna, Prost, Piquet, Mansell, then it's Berger, Patrese, Warwick, O'Donnelly and Modena in 9th place. To carry on with the positions, Caffey 10th, and it's Capelli, Wojtek, Bernard, Nakajima, Leto and De Cesaris. There's Prost, the three of them, Mansell closing up, but all the time Gerhard Berger is actually closing up on this trio. 17 seconds behind this battle for second place is Gerhard Berger.
Well, if Gerhard Berger can maintain that pace, it's not going to take too many laps before he is in a position to latch onto the back of this battle. And I'm sure the mood that Berger's in, he's not going to take any prisoners. He's going to try and take every opportunity he can to make it a podium position. I would never have guessed, having seen his 1 minute penalty, that he'd be in a position to finish in the top three, and that looks like being realistic right now.
Well, now we see the battle for fifth place. Derek Warwick trying to find a way around Riccardo Patrese. Patrese, the man from Padova in Italy. 200 Grand Prix coming up at the British Grand Prix.
Just watching this section of the circuit, there's no overtaking in that corner, but Warwick was closing very close indeed to Patrese, and he may be beginning to think he's got a chance to slide down the inside. This is the point I think he's going to do it. He wasn't close enough that time, but his preparation in the previous corner was to enable him to be close and get a slingshot down the inside in that 1 second gear hairpin bend.
Still 29 seconds between Senna and the battle for second place, across Piquet and Mansell. You see the gap, 18 seconds actually between Mansell and Berger. Warwick still looking for...
and he's having a go.
Good manoeuvre, and not a normal place to pass either.
And that was a very courageous manoeuvre, because he had to go the long way around Patrese, and that part of the track is still marginal. It's not as dry as the racing line is. A very well calculated and executed move, Derek Warwick, and well done. 1 point now, he's in 6th place.
Here's Nakajima, about to be lapped.
And this is the situation Piquet and Mansell are both looking for. Nakajima's pulled well over to the left, let all 3 cars get through, but now they've got Martin Donnelly ahead of them, so the situation has got to then be tackled yet again by Alan Prost. Piquet hoping for an opportunity, and Mansell likewise sitting there thinking, well, when's my chance going to come?
Good motor race, this Canadian Grand Prix, here on the Gilles Villeneuve circuit on the Ile Notre Dame, this extraordinary man-made island in the middle of the St. Lawrence Seaway. The odd freighter goes past every so often. The home of Expo 67, way back in 1967 of course, and subsequently the Olympic rowing competitions were held here. Down to the hairpin. Confirmation of the new top 6, Senna, Prost, Piquet, Mansell, Berger and Warwick.
And now they've all got to wait behind Donnelly coming through this fast section of circuit. There's no way to pass here. The first chance they're going to do any overtaking, I think, is, well, let's wait and see. I was going to say the same place that Warwick got past Boutsen. I don't imagine Prost is quite as adventurous as Derek Warwick would be, but Piquet certainly having a sniff down the inside of Prost, but not happening this time.
This is lap number 43 on the 70.
Martin Donnelly not giving way really at this point. He should have pulled over and allowed these 3 cars to get through. That's part of the etiquette of Formula One racing. I one time got a major, I'll not say what it was, lecture.
Dressing
down from Ronnie Peterson for holding him up in the 74 Monaco Grand Prix, and I was in a race with Emerson Fittipaldi. He came to me after the race and said, you never ever hold up the leaders or the people that are in contention for the lead. Whatever your position is, you move over, let them through. Maybe Martin might find Alan Prost or Piquet, or possibly Prost. I think not so much Piquet, because Piquet is using this as an opportunity. But Prost may not be entirely happy with Martin at this point, and maybe have a quiet word in his ear the next time the drivers have a meeting. But now Martin's moved over, well over to the left, and 3 guys go through, one after the other.
Nose to tail for second place. Prost, Piquet and Mansell. A world champion, a former world champion, and a man who'd love to be world champion.
Oh, Piquet very wide there. Back end of the car broke loose, corrected it, and in doing so just got the rear wheels almost off the road onto the grass.
Piquet's enthusiasm really up here. Spent a lot of time in the pits with the mechanics during qualifying. That's something we didn't see a couple of years ago when he was at Lotus, or last year indeed. And Piquet really has got up back into the program, John.
Well, I'm delighted to see it, because a racing driver, the one thing he never loses is his ability to race. He may lose motivation, he may not feel inclined to want to go out and drive and actually to motor race. We are seeing a motor race. We don't see motor racing all that often in Formula One. What a great opportunity we have to enjoy 3 outstanding race drivers actually having a motor race.
Nigel seemed to have dropped back a little bit there.
Well, again, I feel that maybe he's in a position he's not able to challenge, he's not able to take advantage of the speed he had to catch up to the back of these 2 cars. I feel he drops back to catch his breath, to give his brakes, his tyres, maybe even the engine. Maybe the engine's getting a little bit warm. But I would think within the next lap or 2 you'll see him closing back up again to the tail of Piquet's Benetton. But of course Alan Prost so far has not put a foot wrong. He's not given Piquet that opportunity he's looking for. And Piquet's keeping the pressure on. He's not doing what Mansell's doing and dropping back. He's pushing Prost every inch of the way. And then let's have a look coming through here. The last time Piquet ran very wide coming out of the corner. I think he's going to have a shot now. Let's watch and see.
Well, not that time. Indication of the drying track is that the lap record here has now fallen. Berger on a 23.866, and he's been a little lower than that. In fact, the previous lap record held by Senna from the 88 Grand Prix, of course, 124.972. So we do have a new lap record here at Montreal. As this battle for second continues with Nelson Piquet, poking his nose down the inside.
He's always been a very cheeky chappy anyway, so I suppose it's not surprising to see him trying a manoeuvre like that, getting past Patrese. Mansell wants to get through as well just before that yellow flag, so as he wouldn't suffer any penalty. As I said earlier, passing under a waved or a stationary yellow flag is a major offence, both expensive in terms of cash and an immediate black flag. But I would judge he was well past Patrese before he came upon the yellow flag, and no problem. But look how close he is now to the back of Piquet's car. That 1 or 2 lap of a breather has given him the chance to regain the momentum, close up to the back of Piquet's Benetton, and now apply a little bit of pressure to Piquet as Piquet is applying to Alan Prost.
And I think you're right about Mansell, because he's closed right up again. Still a long way to go. After 44 laps, Senna, Prost, Piquet, Mansell, Berger and Derek Warwick. And it's Patrese and then Martin Donnelly. And Patrese into the pits.
Yes, he's gone in for another set of tyres that I mentioned earlier. The right choice of tyre on a track which has been wet then turned dry is crucial indeed, and he may well have made a tyre choice that was incorrect, or he may have been just unhappy with that set of tyres. Certainly there's some other problem. They're not getting those tyres on. There's something, I think, suspect it's an engine problem. Plugged into him, they're talking to him, the engineers will be saying what's wrong. Looks like they're working in the right rear corner of the car.
Well, John, this will be a disappointment for one of his new sponsors. Big beer battle going on here in Canada. Patrese's team, sponsored by one brewery, and the big rival brewery actually sponsoring the race.
Yes, indeed. It's interesting that we've got 2 major breweries involved in motor racing in Canada.
Senna well in the lead still. The gap still just about 30 seconds, so Ayrton Senna in a class of his own here around the Montreal track, but tremendous battles down the rest of the field. I'm sure you're going to stay with us for the remaining part of the action here at the Canadian Grand Prix.
Dunque io penso che lui cerchi... Sì, però è a 14 secondi 8, quindi praticamente non è che abbia guadagnato moltissimo, pur con questi ritmi elevati, nonostante le difficoltà. Intanto vedi che Prost è riuscito a respirare un po' nei confronti di Piquet. Sul tempo medio di 1,25, mancano 23 giri, diciamo 22 giri a questo punto. Adesso vediamo in cabina di fare 2 conti per vedere approssimativamente quanto può mancare alla conclusione della corsa. I ritmi dovrebbero rimanere questi, il tempo per il momento atmosferico non cambia, i tempi sui giri si ripetono con costanza ormai, quindi calcolando il tempo di 1,25 dovremmo essere tranquilli, e cioè dovrebbero mancare circa 27 minuti alla conclusione della corsa. Questa naturalmente è un'indicazione per la regia, sono 23 giri alla fine. E diamo la linea a Zermiani.
Ecco, Patrese è ripartito ma con poca convinzione, hanno dato lo schiato alla...
You're back at Montreal and this stunning battle for second place continues. The order hasn't changed while you've been away, however. It's Prost, then it's Piquet, then it's Mansell. Second, third and fourth. Senna is 30 seconds ahead of that trio. John, an enthralling motor race.
Yes, it is. Unfortunately, we have not had any more rain. And I'm looking at the track, it is gradually, the dry line is widening, and that's going to create more opportunities for Piquet Mansell to have a shot at that valuable second place. Both of Piquet and Mansell have been looking every side of Prost. So far they haven't found a way past, but as the track widens, the dry line widens, I think we're going to see better and better action in the next number of laps. Piquet right up the gearbox of Prost, Ferrari, almost nudging him as I come around that second gear hairpin bend.
New lap record just set by Ayrton Senna, 1 minute 23.556 on his 48th lap, and Senna showing that he is still the fastest man out there.
Andrew, I haven't seen Piquet race like this for a very long time. This is, I think, the best race he's provided for his fans, for the spectators, for TV in 3-4 years, since the days really of Mansell and Piquet at Williams.
Yes, Piquet, a former winner on this racetrack.
Mansell again dropping a little bit back from the tail of Piquet's Benetton. The pressure that Piquet is applying to Prost is considerable indeed, and for Prost to remain totally unflustered is an indication of that man's abilities and skills. He's been pushed all the way by Nelson Piquet in his Benetton Ford. Remember, the Ford has got a V8 engine, and it's not meant to be as powerful an engine as the V12 engine that Prost has in his Ferrari, but Ford, who are responsible for this engine, believe that in the next couple of races we're going to see even more horsepower being developed. And Piquet's passed Prost down the inside. The move we all expected has now been executed. Piquet has taken second place from Prost, and now it is Piquet second, Prost third, Nigel Mansell fourth, and I'm sure Mansell is going to be encouraged by that, because that is the one spot I would anticipate Mansell now echoing Piquet's move and trying to take that coveted third spot from his teammate Alain Prost.
Now they've got various back markers to lap. Piquet, the winner back in 1984, actually set the fastest lap for this race back in 1980. Well, a bit of Armco barrier in our picture for a second, and back to the action.
And we've got an Onyx and a Leighton House and an Osella, and of course Wojtek and the Onyx did not see Piquet, did not let him through. Piquet will not want to take a chance and go around the long way. He's going to have to wait until they get through this next little sequence before he can pass Gregor Wojtek, get onto the tail of Capelli, and then of Grillard in the Osella. Nervous moments for Piquet. He's past Wojtek.
Wojtek in 11th spot at the moment.
And with that stationary yellow flag, Prost was not able to pass Wojtek, nor was Mansell. But of course Mansell now has got a good chance to get a run at Alain Prost and take that third place from his teammate. I think he's going to do it. Let's have a look and see. Yes, there we go. Almost as if it was in the car myself. I did those in my day, didn't I, Andrew?
You certainly did, John. And of course John Watson racing next weekend at Le Mans. Big news here, driving for the Richard Lloyd Porsche team, not for Toyota. Paired with Bruno Giacomelli.
Oh dear me, Wojtek, my goodness. That was bad judgment on his part again. He ought to have been using his mirrors. Mansell not very happy about that. But now he's safely passed. Prost has got the problem. He's going to have to wait until he gets around this second gear right hand corner. Accelerating up, third, fourth gear. And let's hope Wojtek is a little bit more aware that Alan Prost is on his tail. No, he's not. He hasn't let him through. Well, there's another man I'm sure Alan Prost is going to have a few words with after the race. Capelli inviting Mansell to take the inside line. Fortunately, that line's dry, so there was no problem.
Capelli and Wojtek are battling over 10th spot, in fact.
Well, indeed, they may well be, but when these lead cars come through, it is your requirement to get out of the way, let them through. Now, Prost, look at this, Wojtek passing under a yellow flag. That, I'm sure, is going to cause him to be black flagged. Capelli had to run wide. Prost didn't have very much option. He had to go up the inside. That was a very foolish move on the part of Gregor Wojtek. He still hasn't let Alan Prost through. He's been holding him up now for the best part of a lap. Prost is uncertain as to whether he should pass or not. Now he's made it through. Let's wait and see whether Gregor Wojtek is given the black card, the black flag. Probably a major fine. Swiss francs, French francs, whatever it is. That'll probably hurt his pocket.
Yes, the only man from Switzerland currently in Grand Prix racing from Zurich, Gregor Wojtek, former Formula 3000 racer. The Onyx team now, of course, owned by Peter Monteverdi. Got the teeth back in, John.
Yep. Yes, Swiss businessman Peter Monteverdi, who used to in fact be a car constructor in the 70s, made supercars such as they were in those days.
New lap record from Gerhard Berger, 1:23.211, and Berger now closing up behind Prost.
And Prost, of course, is stuck once again behind a back marker, this time Guerrillard in his Ocella. Prost, I think it's in this traffic, is illustrating that he's not quite as adroit as his two other competitors, Piquet and Mansell, and he tends to be a little bit more cautious, and in this case that caution, I think, has cost him not only second place but third place as well.
Now we see it in slow motion.
Yes, this is Piquet's pass on Prost 4 laps ago. Well judged and executed move on the part of Piquet, and good to see the Benetton really running competitively at the front of a grid.
Yes, still a very new car. We talked a lot about John Barnard, but this car, designed by Rory Byrne, South African designer, has been with the team, well, since the days when they were in fact Tolman.
But in fact, as you mentioned, Rory Byrne, who in my opinion is one of the most interesting and innovative designers in Formula One racing. But John Barnard's influence has been applied, not necessarily in the specific design, but in the general overview of the car.
New fastest lap now, lap record to Piquet, 1:23.131.
Yes, Mansell's execution on Alan Prost, and you can see Wojtek just ahead of Mansell. He slid in there very conveniently indeed. It wasn't much space for him to do it, but he got it in. Took the place from his teammate Prost, now running in third place. But of course, all that traffic has opened up a gap between Piquet and Mansell, and we have to wait now for the next few laps to see whether it's possible for Mansell to make any inroads into Nelson Piquet's almost 6-second lead now.
The man I'm watching is Gerhard Berger. Berger chasing now after Alan Prost, closing up on him. I think Prost has got a problem, or just the way the race was working out?
I think he may have a problem, of course. We'll not know that until after the race. But it's, I think, basically the traffic situation. He wasn't able to use the traffic to its best advantage when it really counted. In the earlier part of the race he had the advantage, but when it came down to a bit of street fighting, which is what that was about, and there we see one of the Dellaras, Andrea de Cesaris' car, stopped. Looks like he's just pulled off. There's no signs of skid marks on the track, so I suspect that some form of mechanical failure has taken his race from him. But talking about Prost, he's not really the street fighter that Mansell is. Mansell, I believe, is one of the finest drivers, especially in a racing situation. We saw last year in Hungary an absolutely superb race, and he took the race from Senna.
Just got a monitor there. He's in 8th spot at the moment, behind Warwick and Donnelly.
But our leader, Senna, very much in control. He's in contact all the time with the pits, with Ron Dennis, masterminding the strategy of this race. We saw in Monte Carlo 2 weeks ago, Senna appearing to be in trouble. Well, he may have had a problem, but the man's ability to assess the situation, even if it was only half a second of a victory over a Lacey. He knew exactly what was going on, as he does today here in Canada on the Gilles Villeneuve circuit.
Any memories of Villeneuve, John? Raced against him?
Yes, I have. I've got memories, in fact, of one race away in '79 in practice, and Gilles, of course, was a truly outstanding competitor and a master in these type of conditions, wet, half wet, dry. And in Dijon '79 in practice, I managed to drive around the outside of him in the wet on one of those very fast sweeping corners, and afterwards he came up to me and said he couldn't believe it. I couldn't take the credit for it because I had a super race tire on that particular day, but it was for me a lovely thing that Gilles, the man who was the master, came along to me and said, "You just blew my socks away."
Senna, Piquet, Mansell, Prost, Berger, Warwick, that is the top 6. Donnelly, Modena, Caffey, Wojtek, Capelli, Bernard, that completes the top 12. Here is Gerhard Berger from Bergel in Austria. .32 seconds, the gap between Senna and Piquet. Brazilian 1-2 at the moment.
At this stage of the race now, Senna really can afford to be cautious. He's got Nakajima ahead of him, but there's no need to take any unnecessary risks. He'll just wait until he comes onto this next straight part of the track, use the 50 to 60 horsepower advantage his Honda engine has over the V8 Ford engine of Nakajima, pulls out, passes without any effort whatsoever. No risks. Now we're into a percentage motor race from Ayrton Senna.
But in fact the gap increasing a little bit. 33 seconds between Senna and Piquet. Then it's Mansell, Prost and Berger. Now just 3 seconds between Prost and Berger. So the motor race continues. Senna may be leading, but battles behind. Stay with it. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Sono dei tempi notevoli questi, insomma. Del resto questa è una pista che più giri e più veloce vai perché si deposita più gomma, dunque il grip, diciamo l'aderenza aumenta in maniera consistente.
Linea Sermiani.
Abbiamo Nannini, l'abbiamo rincorso dappertutto, questo qui è entrato dalla parte retrostante, non si è fatto via da nessuno, nessuna televisione l'ha beccato. Allora perché si è nascosto e è arrivato con calma? No, sono arrivato con calma, ho preso un fondo al circuito e ci ho messo 10 minuti ad arrivare. Ecco, cos'è successo? Non ci posso credere, guarda. Cos'è successo? Guarda, è da Barcellona perché 2 giorni fa mi ha tenuto una marmotta e dico, ma guarda queste marmotte che girano per la strada, se uno mentre guida in conto magari la prende, ecco, l'ho presa proprio io la marmotta. Ma hai preso magari la stessa che aveva passato nelle prove? Non lo so, nelle prove con la macchina normale. Con la macchina normale mi sono fermato, l'ho fatto passare.
Before the season began, falling off a push bike, and an exercise bike. When I say a push bike, I mean he was pushing it jolly hard, but it was stationary, and he failed to start, and then that was in Phoenix, but he finished in 5th position at Monaco, and he's running strong now, so if he can just keep going, that'll be good. And Arrow's leader, Philip, you're watching Stefano Modena, number 8 in 8th position now. It's Senna you're looking at. And the Arrows team have had a boost this week because Alan Jenkins has joined them.
You're back. This man still leads. Ayrton Senna, Nelson Piquet second, Mansell still third, Prost still fourth. Then Gerhard Berger, currently in 5th place, followed by Derek Warwick. That's the top 6. Senna, Piquet, Mansell, Prost, Berger and Warwick. Senna maintaining his lead of approximately 30 seconds over Nelson Piquet, but Mansell closing on Piquet. John.
Yes, indeed he is. He's been closing probably close to a second a lap, and we just saw Mansell. There we see him again. Now he's very much got Nelson Piquet in his sights, and of course nothing feels better for a race driver than to physically see that you're catching the guy ahead of you. He can do that with Piquet, and that will spur him on. See a little spurt of flame coming out of the back of Mansell's Ferrari. That's when he lifts off the exhaust pipe. A little bit of wasted fuel in the exhaust pipe causes that flash, but there's nothing to worry about. But he's now got Piquet in his sights, and when Mansell charges, he charges.
As he does, just to fill in some of the lower positions. Donnelly is 7th and Modena is in 8th spot. Still the odd little damp patch on the circuit. The clouds have rolled back here at Montreal. Most unlikely to have any more rain. This race with just 12 laps left to run.
Alan Prost really sort of detached himself from that battle for second place. Whether he has got a problem with his Ferrari, we don't know yet. He hasn't indicated anything to the pits as he comes past. He's not pointing at anything, whatever the problem may be. I'm sure his pits are well aware, because of these in-car radios that all the cars have. They communicate, the drivers and the pits are communicating, not all the way around a lap, but certainly in the part of a lap coming past the pits where the driver and pits are in visual contact.
Well, Piquet has answered that challenge, because he now has the fastest ever lap of the circuit in a race, a 1 minute 22.854. Nigel Mansell just a smidgen slower at 1:22.860. So a good battle for second place. Prost 4th, Berger 5th, Warwick 6th. There's Alan Prost, man who owns a golf club, and a golf and country club in fact, together with Jacques Lafitte.
And there we see Mansell now driving absolutely on the limit, as is Nelson Piquet, trying to close that second and a bit gap between the two of them.
Quite a few of the drivers, John, coming back to Britain for testing in between this race and Mexico in 2 weeks' time.
Yes, one of those men is going to be Gerhard Berger. Others, I think, like Nigel Mansell, are having a slightly more leisurely layoff between the two Grand Prix. He's going down to some friends, I think, in Houston or somewhere in that part of America. I think he may be trying to further improve his golf, his handicap, and generally have a few days to himself and prepare for what is really a very tortuous Grand Prix, some 7,000 feet above sea level in Mexico City, with all that pollution, which is probably one of the highest pollution levels of any city in the world.
There's a superb shot. You see how this island is, two islands together. The Ile Sainte Helene is the other one you just see in the corner of your picture. And a fan there waving a white handkerchief. Oh no, it's a white flag.
Well, that indicates that there's a car travelling slowly somewhere ahead of those two cars, yes. Looks like poor Martin Donnelly's day is over. His Lotus is cruising back to the pits. So, an early bath for Martin tonight.
Now, looks as if there's just a wisp of smoke coming out of the back of the engine. May have been mistaken.
Well, there's a little bit of flame, in fact, coming out from the left-hand side, so something inside the Lamborghini V12 engine has done a mischief, and that's going to be the cause of Martin Donnelly's retirement for today.
Just to update you on that battle between Prost and Berger, it's now 6 seconds. Senna, Piquet, Mansell, Prost, Berger, Warwick, Modena up to 7th place, and Caffey is now in 8th. Ayrton Senna was in a chatty mood yesterday. John and I caught up with him in the back of the McLaren pit, and a super interview which we'll be bringing you next couple of weeks' time. But there is Martin Donnelly.
Well, they've got the fresh set of tyres all prepared for him, but I think Martin might be saying it's more than tyres I need today. You build another V12 Lambo engine in for me in a couple of seconds, then get back out again. I don't think that's going to be possible.
Well, in car with Stefano Modena, flashing past the pits.
It looks like he's behind Nakajima's Tyrrell. And one of the things I watch about Modena driving is that he tends to nod his head, and look at the way he puts his head right over to the right. Some drivers do that, other drivers keep the head totally vertical. Modena is one of those that really bends his head into the corner as he slides down the inside of Nakajima. Probably Saturo might have been dozing a little bit there, wasn't quite with the program, but realized in time that Modena was coming through and conceded the corner.
Well, that pink writing you'll be familiar with, John. That's the Japanese Italia company who is sponsoring your Porsche at Le Mans next week.
Oh, so I believe. I don't know what it all means, but I don't know if it means I've got to wear one of those pink anoraks as well.
I think you need to be paid extra for that. You're looking forward to Le Mans?
Yes, I think it's going to be very interesting indeed. I'm driving in a brand new 962 Porsche, and with Goodyear tyres, and I think that's going to be a very, very competitive package. It's a totally different race this year. They've got 2 chicanes on the straight for the first time, so really a lottery at Le Mans, I think, for the first time in quite a long time.
All right, we're back to Formula 1. We stay with Stefano Modena, currently in 7th spot. Senna still leads here. Berger, after that minute penalty, still working hard. So stay with us. We're just going to a quick commercial break. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Prost 5 secondi da Prost 5 secondi da.
Amazing to think that, Alan, that Nigel Mansell could take 2 seconds off last year's lap record under these conditions.
Yeah, well, it just goes to show the amount of downforce that these cars are generating, and the normally aspirated cars. We're now travelling with Stefano Modena in the Brabham. It gives you a fantastic impression of the gear changes and just the sort of bumps and the speed in which they approach the corners is fantastic. And as I was saying before, the downforce that these cars are generating now with these normally aspirated engines, they've actually been well under the lap record at most circuits they've been to. Let's take the opportunity now to do a lap with Stefano.
Then the kink that he's going through now, you're looking at the inset now, and you're seeing Nigel Mansell catching Nelson Piquet. It's much closer than it was before, and in the background is Alain Prost still in 4th position. The leader, Ayrton Senna, is on his 64th.
Back for the final stages of the Canadian Grand Prix. Ayrton Senna still dominates the race from Piquet, Mansell, Prost, and then Gerhard Berger. Behind Berger it's Warwick, Modena, Caffey, and Capelli.
And Mansell in trouble. Mansell ran wide in that corner. He was trying to get past Caffey. He was trying to take advantage of Caffey in that position, but ran wide, got onto the loose rubber and the dust on the side of the circuit, and lost, I would say, 2 or 3 seconds. But even worse, when you run wide and go down to that dirty part of the circuit, the sticky tyre, the sticky surface of the tyre picks up all that rubbish. So it might well take now Nigel Mansell 1 lap, 2 laps, possibly 3 laps for his race tyres to come back to the optimum operating condition.
Now Alex Caffey in 8th place in the footwork arrows. Nelson Piquet.
And now Mansell's got to contend with the battling Nakajima and Caffey. Look at Caffey going one way, then the other way, but no, he didn't make it anyway. Mansell almost running into the back of Caffey's car. I suspect that actually Nigel Mansell's brakes might be giving him a little bit of trouble. We've noticed in a couple of places in the last few laps that he's been slightly misjudging the braking and almost overrunning some of the corners, so it could be that Mansell's brakes are giving him a problem, and that's possibly why he's not been able to maintain the attack on Piquet, and that could be part of the reason why also, Andrew, earlier in the race we saw him dropping backward. Look at his hand! Out of the car! Get out of my way! Out of my way!
And Caffey's finally out of the way.
But again, Mansell almost losing it, running wide. The very same thing we saw 1 lap ago. Caffey, you should have been out of the way long before that happened.
And meanwhile, Prost has closed up on Nigel Mansell. A new lap record to Gerhard Berger, 1:22.636.
But Nigel Mansell's lap was a 1:26.419. He lost all the best part of 3 seconds with that manoeuvre 1 lap ago, and just as we saw on this existing lap. So for Mansell now, he's just got to throw his caution to the wind if he's going to have any chance whatsoever to catch Nelson Piquet.
Now he's got Grouillard to pass, and Grouillard's had a wide car in previous Grand Prix.
Well, let's hope his mirrors are equally wide and that he's able to pick up Mansell in them. One of the problems that a driver has at this stage of a race, and particularly where you've had a wet race, is the mirrors get coated in road grime, oil, and they become virtually impossible to see through. So you really rely heavily on the marshalling. And if you see someone waving a blue flag at you, you better have a pretty good look in your mirrors, because for sure there's somebody behind you who's coming a lot quicker. But it is difficult, and people like Grouillard and other drivers are relatively inexperienced.
But look at Prost now. Prost challenging Mansell.
Mansell's last lap was still a 26. He lost so much time in that one corner, the corner we're just going through now. That's given Prost the momentum and the motivation to have a stab at his teammate Nigel Mansell, try and get that third place off him, a place in the podium.
Mansell versus Prost. We haven't really seen this before this season, have we, John? The two running that close together.
No, not at all. But as I said earlier, I think that Mansell may well have a problem. And I think that problem is in his brakes, that probably his brakes have been running very hot. The brake pedal has been getting long. He's not got the maximum efficiency from his brakes, and therefore he's having to lift off and do everything that little bit earlier, and he's not in the position to attack. But Alain Prost appears not to have that problem and is trying to use his advantage to overhaul teammate Mansell.
Well, not much time left. This is lap 67, coming towards the end of it, out of the 70. Molina goes through our picture, still down there in 7th spot. And he is just about to be lapped by Nelson Piquet. Piquet 26.9 seconds behind Senna. Then it's Mansell, Prost and Berger. And Derek Warwick hoping to claim that single point, which could be so valuable to Lotus.
Now Modena getting the blue flag, telling him that there's a very quick car on your tail, Stefano. Nelson Piquet not getting too worried, because really not the easiest part of the track to pass on, but here is the part of the circuit he will want to get past. The standing yellow flags that were there for so many laps have been taken in. The track is relatively clean and dry, but no, he wasn't able to take advantage of the extra horsepower his new Ford HB engine should have over the Judd V8 in Modena's car. But I think Modena now has acknowledged Piquet behind him, letting him past. Yes, he made a little sign to say, okay, off you go.
Nelson with the red light on. Must have accidentally flicked the switch.
Well, they have to run that red light on at the start of a race in wet conditions. He's really forgotten to put it off. But in the heat of battle, I can understand why. There's been total concentration on thinking what's going on ahead of him. And the only worry I would have about a red light running all through the race is, will it drain the battery? The battery that these cars have on board is only a very small battery, and it doesn't really have an awful lot of life. And once it loses its horsepower, once the battery starts to drain down, of course it affects the engine and the running of the car. So that's the only concern I would have of seeing Piquet's light on. But look at Alain Prost, the same thing. So obviously it can't be too much of a problem.
Let's see if the Ferraris can carve their way quickly past Modena.
Well, they're not doing it this part of the track. It's not too easy to pass. It's this next straight where one would expect the Ferrari horsepower to be able to out-accelerate the Judd V8. No, Mansell just about makes it. Not a lot of difference in the acceleration between those two cars.
Eric Bernard in 10th place, challenging Van Capelli for 9th. Those two running nose to tail. Mansell and Prost. A lot of oil film over the helmet of Piquet.
Well, a lot of that is road grime. It's a mixture of the oil dust on the circuit. The circuit was very dusty indeed at the beginning of pre-qualifying on Friday. And just general road dirt, so really seeing the cars in a pretty poor showroom condition. I don't think too many of them would be happy with the concourse condition of the cars right now.
This is lap 69. Gerhard Berger has gone even quicker, 1:22.222, and is just 1.3 seconds behind the Ferraris. You haven't caught a snatch of him on the screen yet. Here is Senna on his penultimate lap. Senna goes on to his last lap.
And really he's just cruising at this stage in the race. He's dropped his lap time from 1:23 to 1:28, and we saw Senna do this in Monte Carlo when he was concerned about his engine and the engine note, but at this stage in the race he's decided that he's won the race. All he has to do now is virtually coast home, and whether he wins by the 15-second gap that was at the start of the last lap or 1 second doesn't matter to him. It's the 9 points that he's after.
Yes, just led briefly in the tyre changing situation by Nannini, but Senna has totally dominated this race. Wonderful combination of that excellent McLaren chassis. The man with the flag's having a bit of a practice.
I don't know what he's doing. I've never seen a man wave the flag 15 or 20 seconds before the leader comes round to take it. Maybe he was just practicing, or maybe he was slightly confused. I don't know what he's holding it out for, because
I think that's something. Oh, now he's giving it the real thing. Just wanted something to do with Gerhard Berger, of course, on the road, won the motor race.
Well,
but had that.
I'd like to think he was a little bit more aware of what was going on than that. But there is the winner, Ayrton Senna. And what a masterful victory that was. Really, I mean, I think we're about to see this season the beginnings of what you would describe as being the purple patch of Ayrton Senna's career.
There is Gerhard Berger on his very last lap. Was his fastest and a new record. Championship points. Senna has 31 points for Senna. Berger 18, Alesi 13, Prost now up to third place with 15, Piquet up to 12. We'll take you through those again in a moment.
I just hope that Gerhard Berger doesn't drive into the pit lane here, because I think the flag marshal has made a mistake in flagging the wrong car. And technically speaking, Berger hasn't finished the race, and I have a funny feeling that he was about to drive into the pit lane.
Well, John, I have to disagree with you. He has finished the race, and he had a minute penalty added to his time. I think that's the way they do it. We'll find out later. But really, no confusion. Senna is the winner. He's really delighted with that one.
Absolutely, indeed.
His 99th Grand Prix, Ayrton Senna. His 23rd victory. So, the rest of the cars coming home. The order, we think: Senna, Piquet, Mansell, Berger, Prost. Warwick gets that point for Lotus this time. Modena, Caffey, Bernard, Capelli, Nakajima. So Senna the winner. Slowed right down at the end. In fact, the victory margin just 10.5 seconds. Well, John, we saw Jean Alesi have a very big accident. Everyone's been predicting that Alesi would finally shunt in a Formula 1 car, and it really was a problem of a novice. Ron Dennis talking to Gerhard Berger. Plenty of Brazilian flags here, presumably connected to Brazilian fans.
Yeah, talking about Alesi's accident, really that was a lot of enthusiasm, a lack of judgment, and a little bit of inexperience in his part to try and do what he did there. Really was impossible, it was never going to work. Even when Nannini did it, he shouldn't have tried to do it. Senna did do it, but much further down the track, and he was able to get it under control and back onto the dry line before he was heavily on the brakes. But I think for Jean Alesi, that'll be a very memorable lesson. And as you say, many people have been anticipating this confidence, almost overconfidence that he's been displaying in a car. It may now check that, and no bad thing.
Look at Senna. He is absolutely delighted with that success.
And he's entitled to be. That was an absolute copybook victory. He drove the perfect, that's the definitive Grand Prix victory. And as I said earlier, the purple patch that Senna might, well, in my opinion, be now coming into, the maturity that sometimes has been seen to be lacking, impetuosity when he's been overtaking people, particularly slower people, in misjudgments that one would not assume that he would make. Maybe now we're now in the period of Ayrton Senna's Formula One career, we're going to see something even more remarkable.
Senna, Piquet, Mansell, Berger, Prost and Donnelly, that is the top 6. Warwick, I should have said, in 6th place. Well, a fan congratulating Ayrton. Talking to his mechanics and engineers. The Mexican Grand Prix, the next race in 2 weeks' time. We'll be live, flag to flag, on EuroSport. John and myself. There's Modena, Caffey, Bernard, Capelli, Nakajimi and Suzuki. So it's goodbye from John and myself.
Bernard. En 9e, 10e, Capelli, 11e, Nakajima.
A partida de Berger está ali do lado esquerdo. Já partiu? Sim, já partiu, mas quer dizer, bem, que ele parte antes dos outros, parte antes do verde, isso é verdade. Mas quer dizer, isto é um pormenor, não é? Ao pé da partida de Imola, em que saíram todos antes do verde acender. Isto é um pormenor e que, aliás, eu suponho que as autoridades esportivas, entendidas na matéria como são, deveriam dar o desconto adequado, já que se trata de piso molhado, como ele gosta. Ele que tem uma certa tendência pela perfeição, tem como objetivo realmente fazer sempre o melhor, conseguiu aqui um grande prémio, aquilo que ele chama um grande prémio à sua maneira. Nos treinos foi o mais rápido, na prova ganhou. Um sorriso naturalmente merecido. Ouviram do Ipiranga, letra do Grande Prémio do Brasil, pódio de Montreal, agora o champanhe da praxe. Agitam-se bandeiras, curiosamente, dos 3 primeiros. Ali uma bandeira da Ferrari, depois a de Inglaterra, Nigel Mansell, e a do Brasil, Ayrton Senna e Nelson Piquet. Champanhe da praxe e...
He is an absolute amazing driver. I mean, not since the days, I guess now, we could say of Jimmy Clark and Jackie Stewart has somebody been so dominant.
Well, I think it's fairly safe to say that he is already a legend. I mean, he will go down as being in the same breath as Fangio, Clark and the great drivers, that's for sure. Good drive from Piquet.
Very good drive from Piquet, and...
Whoops, careful, Nigel, you might get a whiplash of the wrist there or something, throwing that head.
The captain throwing around Union Jack flying, and Alan has got this thing about Nigel and his whiplash. If he jerks the head round, we get a little whiplash. Is that what it is?
Well, it just seems that every time he goes over a curve as a shunt, he's got whiplash or something.
OK, now we're going to recap the placings because I think we've got to get Alan to go through this. It was a lot closer race than we really thought at the time.
Well, it certainly was. I mean, you know, obviously Senna won it and Piquet second, Mansell third, but Gerhard Berger was only 4 seconds from coming second, and that's after he received a minute penalty for jumping that start. So, unbelievable drive from Berger, and it's probably one of those situations where no one will really give him the credit that's due because he didn't win the race, but a great drive. Alain Prost in 5th place, and he was 15 seconds behind, and Derek Warwick bringing in a championship point for Lotus, which was a good result for them. All right, now that means that the Drivers' Championship has Senna increasing his lead with 31 points over his teammate Berger with 19. Alain Prost is now 3rd place from Alesi, and Nelson Piquet is in 5th, and Ricardo Patrese and Terry Boutsen still equal 6th there with 9 points each. McLaren Honda romping away into the distance with 50 points over Ferrari 21, Williams Renault 18, 4th place Benetton Ford 16, 5th place Tyrrell Cosworth 14, and the Brabham Judd and the Arrows Cosworth equal 6 with 2 points each.
Well, a most interesting race, really. We had wet conditions, dry conditions, the tactics of tyre changes. Obviously, what James said made a lot of sense of Berger winning early, and that obviously worked to his credit toward the end of the race.
Yeah, I must say I was confused why they were staying out so long on wets. Particularly Senna seemed to stay out a hell of a long time, but Berger got in there, got them over and done with, and was certainly the quickest man on the track there for a number of laps, and you know, a great race, as I said before, to finish only 5 seconds from second place. Great.
Okay, well,
So congratulations to Ayrton Senna on another brilliant victory. Let's see how that leaves the Drivers' Championship table. And it extends Mr. Senna's lead to some 12 points from his teammate Gerhard Berger. Third, Alain Prost for Ferrari. Fourth, Jean Alesi for Tyrrell. Fifth, Nelson Piquet in the Benetton. Sixth, the Williams drivers, Boutsen and Patrese. In the Constructors' Championship, McLaren already a healthy lead after just 5 rounds, ahead of Ferrari, second, third are Williams, fourth Benetton, fifth Tyrrell, sixth Arrows and Brabham.
I think it was difficult for everybody because conditions were quite difficult to judge, slippery, dirty circuit, difficult overtaking maneuvers because as soon as you go offline you would have a big problem with grip and with the tires. But I got 9 points and I'm very happy for that.
What does it mean to you, this kind of victory here in Montreal with the number 27?
Well, it means 9 more points in the championship, which is very important. And as I mentioned in one of my previous press conference, I hope for the first time the number 27 can have the award title. It's a long way to go, it's going to be tough, but the possibility is there, and we have to work hard and concentrate and try it.
Nelson Piquet, please. How was the circuit today? Not too bad or very bad?
Well, the condition was very bad because it was very wet and dry, and that makes the race very difficult. But the game is the same for everybody.
Are you happy with this second place today?
Well, yeah, more than a year I was not on the podium. Yeah, it's very good for me.
Nigel, how do you feel about your third place today? A very good race for you?
Well, a little bit, but we had a compromise, but I had big oversteer, and one of the biggest problems I had was coming out the hairpin. The automatic box was missing 1 gear every other lap, and you lose that just coming onto the straight, and before you know, you've lost about 50 yards.